it's a secret, yeah?
Secret, yeah. Good. Smart.
Not that I'm concerned about any of this. AI is really extraordinary. After all, it picked you.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Comeback Official Podcast. I'm Evan Ross Katz. I'm joined by
Lisa Kudrow, that's me. I play Valerie Cherish, and I co-wrote the episode with Michael Patrick King, and we co-created the series.
And I'm Michael Patrick King, who co-wrote the episode with the amazing Lisa Kudrow, who stars in it, and I directed all of these episodes.
This podcast exists for the fans who love the comeback, who quote it, study it, feel seen by it. I'm one of you. We're here to go deeper, to unpack what was happening on screen and behind the scenes. First, we're going to dive into the episode, but later we'll be joined by Laura Silverman, who plays Jane, and Jimmy Burrows, who plays himself. This episode is called Valerie Has a Secret. If you haven't watched this episode, what the fuck? Go watch it on HBO Max or HBO, and then come right back here.
Funny? Check. Complicated? Check. Single? Don't tell my husband.
Take me into the writer's room and talk to me about how you wanted to construct episode 2.
I think the simplest thought is this episode is about Valerie takes the bait. There's a starring job, much to her worry that it's written by AI. She finds out there's also a writing team. So she goes full speed ahead into a starring part on this new sitcom. Pure Valerie, pure enthusiastic, pure ready to do it.
It's very Valerie, right? If there's something she really does want to do but knows there are enormous red flags, the minute anybody says, but it's probably going to be okay, great, it's going to be okay.
And she said, and the Writers Guild is good with this. That's the important thing.
Right.
And the Writers Guild is okay. So
Because she's not going to take any heat for it. If anybody questions it, Writers Guild.
No, because Valerie's
good.
smart.
Yeah.
She knows where the lay of the land is, and she knows it's not cool still. I want to talk about crafting the first image of the episode, which is the Frank Gehry building. We wanted NewNet to look like the future, in direct contrast to Warner Brothers, where we shoot the show later, which is old Hollywood. So what we wanted was old Hollywood and new Hollywood. And then what's more current in Hollywood than a Zoom meeting with 365 characters, you know?
Right, you've had that.
Yeah,
So
we've had
you knew
that.
what that looks like.
And the idea that we could pop people in and out in a nanosecond and populate this screen and keep the audience interested, because it's like what we're used to now, fast changing images and new people popping on, was the most exciting thing. We're always trying to find the new way to do something that's been done before. And this is the big meeting,
Yes.
the pitch.
And it's always a joy watching Valerie meet new people and have to figure out names. And this scene is particularly satisfying because there's an influx of people she's meeting that are flashing on and off the screen. And you kind of watch Valerie trying to tread water in this meeting and feel like she can keep up.
These aren't exactly easy names. Nobody
Egypt
has
O'Connor, Arbor Elliott.
Arbor Elliott, Ridley McIntosh.
Riddler, I hear you.
Can you talk about creating this character of Brandon and what you wanted this studio head to represent?
This is not just a straight up villain. He needs to make Valerie feel safe.
First of all, his name, Brandon, comes from the word branding.
Yeah. And he's not a creative guy. He's coming from marketing.
Marketing and YouTube, which is the most populous moment right now, as YouTube is the most popular television thing, shockingly. He's not a villain from Gattaca. He's not cold and metallic. He's in a blue Bruno Cucinelli suit. And because it's Andrew Scott, he's everything.
So, are we in the Valerie Cherish business?
Well, let me think about it. How quick can I say yes?
Can you talk about the casting of Andrew Scott? Because I feel like thinking about, this in the lineage of Seth Rogen coming on the show in season 2, this is another very big get for the show. And it's incredibly exciting to see Andrew Scott on our screens and in a role we've never seen him undertake before.
Can I just say that?
Do everything.
It's
Say it
gonna
all.
sound
We're here all
insane.
night.
I was just thinking, we were hearing from the casting director, there were people who were fans of the show. And then I just had this flash of God, Andrew Scott, to me, is the most compelling right now. I mean, he's the best actor there is. Ooh, wouldn't it be great if he were a fan of the show? Wouldn't it be great if he wanted to be in it? Oh, that would be so great. And then 3 days later, we're talking to Allison Jones, and
Casting director.
casting director, and she said, you know, we heard from, you know, the reps of Andrew Scott, and he's a fan of the show. He liked to be part of this season, and I think I started crying. Well, just because I felt like, oh, I conjured him.
I mean, Andrew Scott, I was afraid that if we had too many cameos, since Valerie is so real to us, and the storyline has to be Valerie living this, that if we brought in too many winks, you wouldn't believe it.
And it had been reality TV, so those are real folk.
Yeah.
Populating
So we
it.
didn't really have a lot of actors. Seth Rogen was a real exception to the rule and amazing. So this was, you know, of course it's Andrew Scott. And I go, I don't know. And now that he's done it, I'm like, what if it wasn't him? But the only drawback was the idea that it might make it less real. And Lisa put me in my place.
Yes, Michael was giving me that argument, and I said, Michael, 20 years ago, we told the audience that Phoebe's now wearing a red wig and calling herself Valerie. And they said, okay, so what's your argument?
That was her, look how red I am. That was her shutdown. Fueled by intelligence, but also an impassioned schoolgirl crush on getting Andrew Scott on the show.
Big talent crush.
And then
Huge talent
we
crush.
zoomed with him, and he was in London. He was wearing shorts, and we're like, well, how's he not going to be in the show? He's so relaxed. He's wearing shorts. And then we sent him all this material, and we were like, oh my God. I thought, what if he's like, I just wanted to come in and go hello, hello. I didn't want to be a force, but when you see it now, you're just like, well, who would it be? I mean, why are we paying attention to anyone if it's not Andrew Scott at this point?
Right.
But what he also brought to it was he laughs at every joke Valerie makes, with the exception of he doesn't know what Mrs. Hat is, which is a runner through the series. But he's a fan of Valerie, which is a new color.
Is he?
Yes. In episode 2, he's a fan of Valerie, which is a completely new color for show business industry. Mostly it's been, we don't see you. And here is a whole room of people, including Ridley, saying, you're great.
Everything that Ridley says to her is, you have real value. And she points out, you did this, reality, you fit all these things, and you're watching it and convinced that, well, maybe it is a good idea.
Yeah.
I feel like we're telling the audience who Valerie is, because I think there's a conventional wisdom that Valerie isn't a star. But to hear that stuff listed after 21 years now, it's kind of like we're reminding you, there's a Charlie Chaplin being run over by a car part of Valerie, but there's also this accomplishment. And the funny thing about the show is it's never enough. But in that moment, she is basking.
Yes.
Yeah. And Seeing Red. She was good in Seeing Red. And that was a good show, and it was it was edgy, and she won an Emmy for it.
So we're hearing Valerie's resume read back to her, but then we get a little insert of an appearance that Valerie made in the interim between Seeing Red and now, which is an appearance on the Traitors.
Yeah.
Can you talk about building that into the script? And then also I want to hear about getting Trixie Mattel on this show.
Yeah. Well, Lisa's a fan.
Yeah.
And I loved the idea of her getting voted off early. Only one drag queen that we thought would be the one for Valerie, and it was Trixie Mattel, who is happily one of those comeback fans.
And I just want to mention, I spoke to Trixie, and she said that she's been asked to be on every season of the Traitors and has turned them down.
Right.
But when the comeback called and said, will you do this 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, 30-second throwaway, I'm in.
Well, that's easy, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do the
Right.
actual thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But she did feel like she wanted to be associated with it. And the other thing that's fun about it is we were creating the meme. That whole stressful.
And also seeing Valerie's Traitors drag.
Yeah.
Seeing Valerie giving, because that's sort of a signature of the Traitors, is that everyone comes and brings a wardrobe.
Yeah.
And we get to see...
a Scottish-themed wardrobe.
Yes, yes. And I also just have to say, I love the notion of Valerie as a traitor. Because if she's going to be on this show, as Candace Dillard Bassett famously says on The Traitors, the show is called The Traitors for a reason. It's a show about the traitors. And Valerie is an Emmy Award-winning star. It makes sense that she would be a traitor.
Yeah.
Right. Except, she's not good at it, you know. Yeah. And then also it just turned out to be sort of a theme here.
In the show.
Show.
That she says they have writers, the WGA is good with it, so I'm not a traitor.
So also present at that meeting is Billy. Billy comes with Valerie to this meeting. So can you talk about sort of the evolution of Billy and his time with Valerie? Because it's clear that he's been a fixture in her life during this time between when we saw her last and now.
Billy, from the minute we met him, it's like they weren't going to make me a partner, so I just went out on my own. And I'm not with the big PR agency. So he's always wanting more. I imagine told her like, all right, I'm not a publicist. I need to be a manager because that's what I need to do. And there's a limit to my gifts. And so he's just insisting, okay, so she makes him her manager. And now they're at this meeting and like, I'm producing partner. Okay. Now he's a producing partner.
He's never quite getting it. He always feels like he's not chosen. So, which is so great for him and Valerie because he's a victim and she doesn't think like that.
Right.
He doesn't even have a real grasp of the indie movie she was doing that he told her about. But this is his moment.
Right.
Yeah, up and coming indie director, not at all. Right.
But no executive producer credit on that one.
No.
So this is really an opportunity for him.
Right, and please note, Val is not excited to be an executive producer with this.
No, and Billy's a bit of a very fashionable bulldog.
Did you get me on camera, Patience?
He keeps pushing his way to make sure that the head of the network says yes to him before he leaves, and he's dressed for success. Billy's going through some sort of metamorphosis where he wants to step up and be visible and seen differently. He's in a kind of a desperation that we kind of thought everybody is.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, well, speaking of people that are trying to assert themselves differently, let's talk about Mark in this episode. When we first see Valerie coming home, Mark's like, actually, mid-meal, I'm ready to start my meal all over again because you've given me the opportunity to get out of the house and go do something.
Yeah.
Well,
I've got my Soho House membership came. Let's go.
And it's important. He says my, not our.
Yeah.
My. It's like I'm desperate to be recognized. There's a chilling line. I'm home. I know I was tracking you. He's sitting at the dining room table tracking his wife.
Yes.
So a woman always is figuring out how to keep going. And what I think is interesting about the landscape right now is men are starting to have to figure out who they are post, in Mark's case, job, post-job identity. And he says, let's go to the Soho House, which is across the street. And he's going to wear his new glasses. I mean, he needs something.
Wait, those glasses.
Sure.
So explain to me, because we're told that Valerie was the one that suggested these glasses for Mark, but my read of it was that Valerie wasn't so sure if that was the right suggestion, but maybe that's my interpretation.
Well, because you didn't think they looked so good.
Do you think they looked so good?
I don't know anything.
I do. Here's what's happening. Look around.
They're oversized.
Look around. Look at all the actors. They're all wearing big Swifty Lazar glasses for some reason. Swifty Lazar, look it up, old Hollywood guy. But the reality is, Mark is trying to be current when he feels out in the pasture somehow.
Right. And as you were saying, the reason that they head out is that Mark wants to be seen, goes, and then all of a sudden, instead of being seen, he ends up seeing someone from his old firm that he doesn't want to see, that completely puts the rain on his parade.
What I love about Mark fleeing, it feels true and also shocking that this guy's just like, hey, dude. He's just like, no, let's go. Maybe that's me. I'd want to get out of there, and I've laid it on Mark. But the reality is, I think it's really interesting that this character who supposedly in the comeback lure is her anchor is like, let's get out of here
Yeah.
right now.
Well,
And
he's that injured. I mean, he's very injured.
And in such stark contrast to who he was, 30 seconds earlier, glasses on, totally relaxed. Here we are at this fabulous place, but we can kind of make fun of it a little bit because that's who we are.
And then there's a line in there in the hallway afterwards when they're talking about the fact that Valerie deserted him and left him there. Lisa's, I think, maybe favorite line she wrote in the show is,
And then the waiter comes over, hands me this fucking doggy bag, and Greg looks at me like I can't afford to waste food.
Like, I can't afford to waste food.
yeah. Lisa jumps right into Mark's shame, like, I can't afford to waste food. And then she said, very important line next, there's no way he thought that, not with your golden parachute. They're not in any trouble.
There's no financial imperative here.
They are
It's
socially
all ego,
awkward.
pride. That's
it's
what it is.
Pride, it's feelings,
Shame.
it's emotions. It's not real.
Valerie runs into Sharon, played by Marla Garland, who we first met in the pilot episode of The Comeback way back when. She heads over, and lo and behold, we have Miss Jane Fonda sitting at the table. Now, you were saying earlier that you wanted to be thoughtful sort of about bringing known entities into this show and sort of not have it be a distraction. And yet, I think it's important that, with Fran Drescher in episode 1 and now Jane Fonda in 2, what made you say yes to Jane? I mean, I can't imagine one says no to Jane. What made you
Jane didn't ask. We asked Jane.
Oh, yeah, Jane.
Okay?
Jane was like, Jane did not
Jane
send.
was not like,
Jane did text.
hey, remember me? No, that's Jane
No,
Fonda.
Lisa
doesn't do that.
We girded our loins, and Lisa asked Jane. The interesting thing about Fran and Jane together, what Valerie says to both of them is, "Can I get you for my socials?"
Yes.
And that is the new red meat. Like Valerie's new current thing is social media, getting a collab, and getting celebrities on her thing.
Only Valerie Cherish lets Jane Fonda know. I'm going to post it, but I, don't do anything political. So, why is that comforting to Jane Fonda? And she said, of course, Jane Fonda says, why not? Well, look who I just ran into, Miss Jane Fonda.
Vote.
We wrote a big moment because we wanted to see Valerie sort of bow down to somebody, but not really.
Right. And I love Jane's expression when Valerie says, how do you know each other?
Did she cast you?
Yeah, did she cast you? And Jane's just almost offended to be like, of course not.
She laughs.
She does because she said she
cast
cast all the sitcoms and then says, did she cast her? And she's like,
it was such a great reaction.
So good. Now, we get Sharon falling, not once in this episode, but twice. We also get Valerie falling at the end of this episode. What is it for you? Because you love people falling.
She falls here because she's desperate. Valerie is just walking away from her without saying goodbye, and she wants to get a job. To me, first of all, it's fantastic. Marla did her own stunt.
Oh my God.
Now, what's funny about it? You tell me, every person, when you see the trailer, every person who sees the episode or sees the trailer, the minute Valerie falls, they laugh. It's just the I'm trying to do something else and my body goes somewhere else. Lisa's not a fan of falling. I am.
I know. I was like, wait, we've got 2 women falling. What are we saying? That, when when the emotions go up, they don't know how to walk anymore.
But it goes more to the idea that everybody's desperate to work now. Billy's desperate to move up. Sharon says, it'd be great to be working again. These are all people of a certain career that is maybe leaving them. Goodbye. What's Sharon casting? She's known for casting sitcoms. Where are they? There's 3 left. So I like the fact that a need, imbalanced need, makes people fall down.
So we're talking about all this desperation. At Trader Joe's, we meet Jane, not Fonda, the other Jane.
Right.
Valerie's Jane.
She seems to have this weight lifted off of her, right? What was it like bringing Jane back in, and what were the conversations to sort of say, okay, she's an integral part of this series, but what is the thing that can convince Jane, if anyone's going to be reluctant about Alice, it's going to be Jane. How do we craft a way to get her back on board?
Well, because it's very Valerie to ignore a thing that's a perceived threat. And it should be documented. also. It's the first AI written sitcom. That's noteworthy. That's worthy of, being chronicled.
We thought, oh, somebody has to be the Paul Revere saying the AI is coming, AI is coming. And then the cheese is right on the trap again when Valerie says, it's a secret. Why? Why is it a secret? That's the thing. It's not I'm doing a sitcom written by AI as much as it's a secret. And Jane, it busts wide open. Her sad need to tell the truth, which is kind of noble too, drags her right out of her comfort, calmness, where she's so happy. We had a line we had to cut, which is, and Val, putting oat milk on shelves is so relaxing.
And she's in a relationship and everything's
And
working.
happy.
Everything's working.
Which is funny because it kind of mirrors where Jane was at in season 2. Jane had the Oscar on the floor, but it's where she wanted it. And then Valerie comes knocking and brings her back into the fold. And so there's something sinister yet satisfying about seeing history repeat itself once again.
I mean, Jane is an interesting duality because she is competitive in a weird way. She has ideas and dreams and things, and only she thinks it's about saving the world. Valerie thinks it's about camera time.
Well, I think she cloaks it in saving the world. That's my personal opinion.
Do you believe that Jane likes Valerie?
Yeah, I think she likes her the way you like a toddler or like a guinea pig, like a pet. No, but you know what I mean? I don't think, she likes her. But she doesn't feel like there's a lot of weight to Valerie.
I think it's those relationships where you've gone through something together. I think Valerie might feel the same way.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lisa?
Yes.
So it seems in this episode that Valerie's trying to once again bring the people in her life that have brought her comfort and ease, bring them back into the fold. And it starts with this run-in with Jane at Trader Joe's. And then all of a sudden it's, okay, Jane's back. Who's another one? Jimmy.
I mean, Jimmy he's a very valuable commodity. I mean, Jimmy Burrows directing a pilot is a big deal. So she's trying to, legitimize this show. And so if Jimmy will do it, that will be a big deal.
Right.
Also, Jimmy, prize winner. Jane, prize winner.
Right.
By default, Valerie works with people who win prizes. This is like, I'm bringing out the big guns because I'm big guns, or I need to be big guns.
And Valerie has them in her Rolodex, and the pride in that. I mean, thinking about with season 1, I can call Tom Selleck. I have him. You might not be able to get him. I can
Now,
get
that's the craziest callback ever that's in this episode.
So
Yeah.
That she says to Sharon.
She's still stuck
That's
on it.
so interesting to me in the writing that it's underneath. It's underneath. You thought little of me.
Right.
And I'm going to remind you, and then I'm going to give you a job.
Right. And in bringing you onto this job, I'm reminding you of such so that you know that you did me wrong, but I'm going to do you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But the Tom Selleck
did her wrong.
call-
It's just like the next time from now on, I know you'll listen to me.
Yes.
I know it'll be different now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But it's just, and he did call back and he would have done it. And he would have. We saw it.
Yeah.
He called.
That's the thing so often about Valerie. It's like she promises these things and she can deliver. And I think there's a version of Valerie, a read of this character where it's like she's all talk, right? But I think one of the great things about Valerie, and I think it's emblematic in that episode, where it's like she says she's got Tom Selleck, but then it's like, does she? No, she does. Like, she can get him.
Well,
She
that
can.
was important.
You just never know with her because she is sort of ignoring that Polly G's an asshole. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like
But
your
the idea
reality is
that Tom
skewed,
Selleck call
so.
is so. What's so great about it is they have like an almost emotionally connected moment where you realize, oh, people do like Valerie.
Yeah.
I mean, who Valerie was in her 20s. Can you imagine how, without any real desperation to keep going? I mean, she must have been adorable.
So we're talking about Jimmy and we're talking about Jane. These are characters from the past that we know and love. But we have some new characters in addition to Andrew Scott's character, Brandon. New characters in the form of these new showrunners.
Yeah.
We've got John Early and Abby Jacobson playing Josh and Mary.
I was so blown away by how much online love we got from women of a certain age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, once it was agreed that Andrew Scott will be
Broke the barrier,
will be worth breaking
star.
that thing. And then, and then there's Abby and John, and oh my God, so good.
The great challenge and the great obstacle, and it's like going to the gym mentally, like who are these people now?
Right.
Like we had the two dudes for Room and Board, Tom and Paulie G. That was such a clear, those guys that ran the show. Then Paulie was the auteur, writer-director in Seeing Red. I was really excited we came up with, there's been countless couples that have run shows, countless over the years, countless.
There should not be any typos. Well, let me get my script.
You can just go back all the sitcoms. You'll find a married husband and a wife who wrote sitcoms. So we thought about that was really funny. In a team, one's always something and one's always something else.
Right.
It's a really interesting balance. And in this, Josh, played by John Early, loves to hear himself talk. And Mary, played by Abby, barely says a word. And when you're filming it, you're looking at them and they're doing what's written. And then when you look in the editing room, you see Abby is just thinking so hard. Everything is just active. She's just really just doing so much that it's comparable to what John's doing on the outside.
This is too much talking.
I agree. And she finally says, this is too much talking. And she's threading this needle without being dismissive and shutting her down or being angry. It's just like, just a fact. This is too much talking. Yes, it is. I agree.
Yes,
Yeah.
because the relationship that Valerie has with her showrunners is very important to Valerie, because I think Valerie knows the better relationship she cultivates with these people, especially at the outset, the better her experience is going to be, and the more lines, the more opportunities she might get on
which
the show.
is the nightmare of Billy bringing two executive producer hats.
Yeah.
It's the last.
She knows.
The horror on Valerie's face when he says we could wear these into the meeting.
Yeah,
She's
she
like,
knows.
no,
She's
I
not
don't
an
want them
idiot.
to think I'm trying to take over the show. Valerie knows her place, and she does not want to be the executive producer of that show. She wants to be the star of that show.
So it's not the wife of the star.
Yeah.
She assumed she was playing the wife
Totally.
of the guy.
Yeah.
And no, it's her. I mean, now it's,
Now
a
it's
really,
really
big deal.
Yes, selected by Alice Est, no less.
That's thrilling, right?
Yes.
That
It's funny. It's like you don't know how to receive that, because it's like,
Yeah.
as you say, it is thrilling, and then it's also bizarre and strange, but also it's like, okay, yes, she was chosen.
what the AI experience is currently and what it will be, it's pulling data. And if you put into an AI machine, woman, certain age, TV star, sitcom, it's going to pull, and Valerie's coming up to one of those top spots. And then whatever happens, we don't know. But that's why Valerie is picked by Alice, because she is the right thing, just like
Well,
AI.
you can also tell it within a certain budget.
Yes. Who can we get for this money? And the other thing is, that's what it does with scripts. It just takes the essence of what a joke is and gives you options.
Yes.
And that's why I think it's so great that Alice has picked Valerie, because I think that's what would happen.
Well, but I mean, listen, I mean, we are told that there are programs in development that will be pretty funny and might be really good and nuanced and sophisticated.
I mean, the idea for us was, we know AI is there, but hopefully by the time we got on, no one, which is the premise, is going to have claimed that they're using it. That's why we came up with the concept.
To write a multi-camera show. But I think that's what was so smart, because I kept saying, no, but it's going to creep into everything. We have to see it creep into everything. And Michael was really smart about, let's stick with it's writing this multi-camera show.
When it came to AI, the one aspect that the public pushed back on wasn't medical, wasn't clerical, wasn't even psychological. It was art. So then we came up with the idea of, oh, maybe they wouldn't want people to know that AI is unpopular. So then we came up with our sort of the secret, which is the machine.
Right.
I think that Valerie has a secret and that she's the only one who knows it. For me and for us as a writer, gave us almost like a weird comic deep throat thriller moment. Like, it's weird.
Because the first minute she needs something, and there's a little resistance from Laura. Nothing new. Jimmy, nothing new. No, this is new. It's AI. First thing she says.
And what a terrific button to this episode, where we start to see Valerie coming around to this notion, going into more of saleswoman mode around all of this, gets in the car, GPS comes on. I don't listen to this. I know better.
Turn right now.
It said turn.
Yeah, that's all right.
Missed it.
Everyone is using GPS and everyone is fighting with it.
Yeah.
The humans think they know. And it was so funny to get Jimmy back on the show. I always had the thought that he's Zeus at Mount Olympus, which is why the house is so big and the pool and everything. Like, why would this man ever leave Olympus? And an actress comes walking across your lawn. It's just such a funny dilemma.
Can you share, I'm curious, we do not see the conversation between Valerie and Jimmy in which she finally convinces him. What do you think it was that Valerie said that got him over the line?
We can tell you what it was.
Outtakes.
Yeah, there was a joke and a thing and she falls into his crotch and stuff. But she leans in. I'll tell you what's new. It's written by AI. And he just says, I'd like a front row seat to that. It's either the beginning or the end.
Of everything.
Of everything.
We thought that he would be fascinated by what is either the downfall or the further evolution of this business that he has conquered.
Yeah.
So, but we thought it was more fun to not hear her say it's a secret again, but just in hindsight to imagine what happened.
Well, especially fun because watching it the first time, I was like convinced that I knew the ending, that she wasn't able to get him and that this is going to be, Valerie leaving and a failed triumph. And then lo and behold, she got him. But then she falls on her way out.
Yeah.
But were you wondering, why on earth is he doing this? Or
I was wondering what got him there, but then I also recognized his love for Valerie. There's something very paternal about Jimmy and his relationship with Valerie that I for me, I was like, I think he's willing to do this with Valerie and show her that it's a failure.
Yeah, but he's not doing it for her.
No.
He's doing it for television.
Which is why I wish we kind of kept that in.
Yeah, we can't.
Oh, well.
Can't have it all.
No, we can't.
Can't have it all. Can't have it all.
Can we have it in an extra somewhere if anyone wants to see it?
Sure.
I'd like
I'll
to
bring it
see-
to people's houses. Just write in and I'll bring that.
I'd like to
your
see you
house.
falling into his crotch. I think
Yeah.
that would be a fun
Sure.
outtake.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a suntan lotion on the arm of the lawn chair, and she goes, Alina, and she goes into his crotch.
Ooh. Yeah.
In true MPK fashion.
Shtick. Highly elevated shtick.
Yes, just what we like.
Yes.
Michael, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today. And we
Pleasure.
will be back with episode 3 very soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We reunited with Jane this episode at Trader Joe's, seemingly transformed, living a whole new life, only to watch her slip almost instantly back into Valerie's orbit. And we are so lucky to be joined now by the person who has embodied Jane from the very beginning, Laura Silverman. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
When we talk about the comeback, we cannot not talk about Jane. And I'm so glad that she's back for season 3.
Me too.
Yeah. So I'd love to start by rewinding the tape. Can you talk to me about the initial conversation that happened in which the show and the character of Jane were first presented to you?
I had met Lisa before. She did an episode of Dr. Katz. Do you know it?
I do.
You're not looking like you know
No,
it.
I do.
Can I just pause and say I love your color story today?
Thank you so
with
much.
the nails and everything.
Thank you. And can I just say, as someone named Evan Ross Katz, everyone would always be like,
Oh, Dr.
so,
Katz?
yeah. So believe me, of all people to know about Dr. Katz, I know about Dr.
Okay.
Katz. Yes.
It's kind of amazing like how many people like still really love it.
Of course.
So I read the sides and I was excited and the audition I remember so well because I walked in, and as I was walking in, actually a friend of mine was walking out. She had just auditioned, and she was wearing a suit, and I was wearing like a red tank top and cords. And I was like, oh shit, did I get this completely wrong, you know? And so I walked in, and everyone was there. Lisa was there, Mike was there. The room was full of people, and I just read with her. It was the scene where I say, can you just be a little more excited?
Just the whole comeback is about how excited you are.
Well, I am excited.
Right, but they didn't let us film them actually telling you, so this needs to be the big event.
Right, okay.
And so I read the scene, and when I finished, Lisa went, finally. And it was probably one of the best moments of my life. And then I got a call that I got it. And I got it.
I got it.
Most scenes on the show have subsequently become iconic, but that's one of the really big scenes of the first season.
Yeah, I guess so. But it is just sort of, I felt like, wow, I just like went with my instincts, and I was really kind of just quiet, but like secretly trying to push her.
I want to touch down on a moment from the pilot episode that for me always sticks out, which is that Valerie and Jimmy are having their confrontation backstage on the set of Room and Board. And Jane, who's newly in this role of producing the comeback, is trying to figure out what to do. She sends the camera crew around. They end up capturing that entire moment, and it cuts to you standing outside the door with this just satisfaction.
That moment was on my reel for a long time. Like it was hard to scrape together things where I was talking. So a lot of things on my reel were just like that moment, like I'm all smug and satisfied. Like, yeah, we did that. And when you watch it, it's so painful.
What's your take on the complex relationship between Valerie and Jane?
I mean, I think it just gets more and more complex as it goes along. You see them develop a bond. Like, Jane is not a monster. Like, if somebody were coming at Valerie, she would get in the way. Yeah, it grows. Like, you know, when there's the thing when Valerie comes to her house and she calls her spider eyes. It was like one of the greatest moments in my life too, was like right after it aired, because nobody recognizes me really. It was some guy, like I was at CBS and some guy jumped up over the aisle and said, "Spider eyes." Oh, and I don't know if I'm like the last person to figure this out or if I'm a genius and I'm about to blow the entire world's mind. But when Jason Silver in that dressing room, the Leno dressing room, when he says, "We're picking you up for a second season," he says, "How's that?"
This crazy vomit thing has pushed it over the top. They're picking you up for another season. How's that?
Maybe they did it subconsciously.
Right.
And I just made the connection.
Right.
That's the name of the show. How's that?
But this is such an interesting transition then to where we find Jane, where we meet her again in season 3. Obviously, we first meet her in episode 1, where we get a glimpse of the fact that she's still in Valerie's life, in indentured servitude.
Indentured, I love that line. Like, that's what indentured means.
Yeah. But then when we flash to present day, we have this moment in episode 2 when Valerie's, I was going to say she's shopping at Trader Joe's. I think she's more on a mission to find content or potential collaborations. I don't know if she's...
Well, no, she's going to get those flatbread crackers.
But is she going to get them, or is she going just to have them for content's sake, or maybe it's a double win?
That's a good question. She's always looking for a place to go shoot.
Right. Well, also it's like...
Here are the crackers that Mark likes.
Exactly. And it's like she can then go get her content, then go home and say, "Marky, I was thinking of you today and I got you these." And so it's like everybody wins. But as we re-meet Jane, there is... I see it as an apathy that has grown in her and sort of just a resignation around the industry, and then maybe as a result around where she fits into it all. But where would you say we find Jane when we meet her again this season?
Yeah, I think that she's just sort of like talking the talk. I think that she's just convincing herself like, okay, I'm just going to be a regular person and have a job and you know, live in an apartment. And I mean, it doesn't take much. I will tell you, like, the best piece of direction that Michael Patrick King ever gave me is the very last moment of that scene in Trader Joe's. She tells you it's written by AI, and then, you know, reaction. And then she says, "And it's a secret." And when she says, "And it's a secret," he said, "I just want you to like bite down on raw meat." And I literally did that. And he's like, "And don't do anything, you just bite down on raw meat." And you can see it. Like I can. I don't know. And I love that. It didn't take a whole lot for her to just be like, oh, that's a story. Because, well, also one of the things that she's ranting, like, oh, people don't care about, the inevitable, which I couldn't say at all that day. The inevitable dangers of big tech. Something like that. The inevitable dangers of big tech. And Michael kept saying, like, it's okay. It's just like sets up the entire premise of this season. But, don't worry about it. We also find out that they spent a lot of time, like years, together after the comeback, trying to film a documentary that just never like found its teeth or roots. Like during that time, they became very close. You can see when she sees her, it's like there's real love.
Right.
It's not fake. Jane doesn't fake it. Jane doesn't, like smile and run and hug somebody if she doesn't want to.
No. No. So episode 2 is very much about getting the band back together.
Yeah.
But I'm curious from your perspective, what made Jane say yes to this?
She saw it as a way to get on the inside with cameras of this thing that she thinks is a huge threat to society. And she's kind of like undercover, but, we don't know where that's going to go.
Right. So you make this show, season 1, in 2005.
Yeah.
Then season 2, 2014. And there seemed to be at the time a finality about where things landed in season 2.
But she became a real girl.
She became a real girl.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for you to find out that the show was going to be coming back and that you were going to be such a crucial part of the new season?
Well, the second part, no idea. I was in a store very far from my house that's called, it's called, oh, exclamation point, fancy that, exclamation point. And it's all British like food. And you can go there and get like Cadbury and good chocolate. And
Sounds
I was
like a sitcom that Valerie would be on.
I was there and I was putting my things and I got a text from Michael saying like, can I call you? And I'm like, it can only be one thing. And so, yeah, I was like paying for my Cadburys and talking to them. And I just sort of suddenly like felt like I went to another planet, like when you just feel like you're underwater or something. And they're like, are you in? And I was like, yeah, I'm in. Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, great. Oh, great. Oh, we're so excited about the things we've been writing for you. And then he said, the premise is Valerie does the first AI sitcom. And that was all I knew. And that was in February. And I didn't tell anybody. And it was delicious. I don't know, is that making me evil? I'm just loving this. Like I didn't tell anyone except my husband.
He got to know.
Well, because he doesn't listen to anything I say. People who are fans of the show, I really, really, really didn't want anything to leak because I just wanted it to be like the most fun it could be for the fans.
Right. How has this show changed your life?
I was at a point where I was just like, I just don't really want to do this anymore because I mean, maybe stupidly, but I came to Los Angeles so many years ago, like with a lot of training and thinking I was going to be like a dramatic actress, but like I started in comedy and it just sort of kept going that way. And I'm so appreciative and I love everything. I'm so like, I feel so blessed like that I got to do like these culty, cool things. But I begged and I begged and I begged anybody like, representatives, agents, please, like, can you send me out for dramas? And it just never happened. And I didn't know how to make it happen, and that's my fault. But I was like, yeah, I just don't think I want to do this anymore. And so then this came, and I was like, okay, well, cool. Like, I mean, at the very least, I love these people, and I'll just be, on the sidelines getting hit in the head with a camera. So I was like, okay, I'll make some money. I'll have fun with these people. I'll give my whole heart to it. I'll be there for Lisa to off camera to like be with. I had no idea. And then when I found out like how much they were entrusting me with and what they were giving me to do, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. And then like we did this one scene that's like it's a kind of a big scene for Jane. And Michael came running after the first take and he just went, thrilling. That's his thing. That's his where like he's so excited. And And I was like, God damn it, these motherfuckers made me want to do this again. I really said to my husband, like, well, I'll just be on the sidelines and I'll just do the Jane thing and make some money, and that will help give me a buffer while I figure out what I want to do. But now I want to do it.
Well, Laura, you are so real and you are so great. And thank you so much. And I look forward to audiences continuing to see Jane's journey, which you have adequately teased. And the rest of the season is going to be very exciting for Jane and all of those involved in the chaos that is the comeback.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're joined by Jimmy Burrows, who plays himself, the legendary hitmaker, director behind Taxi, Cheers, and of course, Friends. He's calm, authoritative, and when he speaks, the ground shifts. Valerie may not always be ready for that, but we always are. Jimmy, thank you so very much for being here. It's an honor to be chatting with you here now.
I appreciate that.
So it's so nice to have Jimmy back on the comeback. Jimmy is such a stabilizing force in Valerie's life. Can you talk about getting the call from MPK and learning that he was interested in bringing you back into the fold for this new season?
Do I have to talk nice about him? I was honored. I'm not an actor, and especially I'm not an actor opposite Miss Kudrow. So the fact that Michael wants my monotone back in the show, I was just thrilled. I immediately said yes. I love working with him. We've worked for a long time together, and it just gives me a chance to see the side of show business that I don't usually get to see, which is the acting side,
Mm-hmm.
and what an actor has to go through, and the preparation that they have to do. I'm not saying I did any of that, but I was certainly immersed with the actors. It was so interesting for me.
You've been behind the scenes for decades now, but in 2005, when you did the show for the first time, I imagine it was one of your first times being in front of the camera. What was that experience like way back then?
Well, Michael sent the script to me, and he said, read this, and I thought he wanted me to direct. No, he says, I want you to play Jimmy the director. Why? Because I wrote the part for you. Before I ever started directing in television, I was on a rota. I played Mike Brock, literary agent on a rota. And I was on a Newhart. I played a maintenance man. So you'll see they bear a strange resemblance to Jimmy the director. I had some experience. I acted in Summer Stock. Well, acted is the wrong word. I knew my lines in Summer Stock. And I get very nervous. I have a hard time being in the emotion of the piece because I'm always worried about what I say next.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you've known Michael Patrick King for quite a long time. Can you talk about how you two first met and then how he approached you to be a part of the comeback?
Michael was on I think the first year of Will and Grace. So that's 1998. So I met him there, and Michael was big and scary to everybody else but me. And I loved him because he was so funny. Michael is so funny. It's just scary. I don't think he was hesitant about asking me or anything like that. He just, one day I was not directing anymore. I was being directed by Michael Patrick King. And I kind of got a charge out of it.
I'm curious, as a director yourself, and then being directed by Michael Patrick, what makes Michael such a good director?
He knows what he wants. Very important. Lisa's on his wavelength. Most of the other actors are actors on his wavelength. I'm not an actor, so Michael had to deal with me in different ways. He knew how to get out of me what he wanted, which was, I think he would have elicited it differently if it was an actor. He's just a gifted human being.
He truly is. So I want to go back to 2005 and filming that pilot, because we all know the show today. We know the construct of it. We know Valerie Cherish, but at that time we didn't. and you play a really pivotal role in that first episode. Can you talk about filming that original scene with Valerie in season 1 when you take her away from the cameras backstage on set and give her, as I would describe, like a firm talking to?
Yeah, that was hard. That was hard for me. When the table read, I went over to Michael Patrick King and I said, she gets shit on at every moment. Can she have a moment of redemption? He said, no, I don't want that.
You're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm trying to help you here. Do you understand?
Yes. But all I'm saying is that, look, I'm always looser on the second, third take. You know, they gave me lots of takes on it.
Well, you know what? You're not it anymore.
I'm working with Lisa Kudrow, who is my dear friend and this wonderfully gifted actress who can put on this character that scares the crap out of you. She's so daunting and blind as to where she is in the world. After a while, I began to think she's one of my daughters. I have 4 daughters, and I just had to tell her the truth. And it was hard. And, you know, her reaction broke my heart. And so I don't know if that's acting or what that is, but that's the process I went through.
Audiences have such a reverence for the character of Valerie. There's something so redeeming and so endlessly lovable about her. I'm wondering, for you, Jimmy Burrows, the human being, not Jimmy Burrows, the character on The Comeback, what is it that you love most about Valerie Cherish?
She's got a big heart that she doesn't let out too often because she's an actress and she's driven. But, you know, Val and Lisa have a big heart.
You've worked on some legendary sitcoms. The list is long, among them Taxi, Cheers, Friends. And people talk a lot about the fact that the sitcom seems to be a dying art form. Do you see it that way?
I've attended the funeral of the multi-camera sitcom a lot of times. But unfortunately, this time I'm wearing a suit. I don't know what it is. It's been a while. Chuck Lorre is kind of keeping it alive. I don't know what it is. They're cheaper to make. You have to be funnier because, you know, you're in front of a live studio audience, and if the joke doesn't work, you got to change the joke. So I wish I had an answer, Evan. I don't know why now, but believe me, I was there for the heyday.
And lastly, I want to ask you, what do you think it is about The Comeback that has given it such permanence, despite the fact that it hasn't had that long of a run at all? 2 seasons, 21 episodes. And yet, even before it was announced that we were getting a season 3, people are always talking about this show.
When I go to New York to see theater and stuff like that, sometime, you know, my wife and I will have dinner, and a waiter will come up and says, I love your work. And I say, thank you. Yeah, I did Cheers, I did Friends. No, I loved you on The Comeback. It's a tribute to Lisa and Michael. They're the ones who make the show. They're the ones who have the voice. And it's really specific. It's really different. I don't think I've ever seen a show like it before.
Jimmy, thank you so much. I'm really excited that you're back in the fold. I'm excited to see what happens with Jimmy because, you know, he just signed on to this project, and I hope it will be a success now that he's here. I guess we'll have to see what happens, right?
Yes, we will. Absolutely. Keep your fingers crossed.
Jimmy, thank you for being here and for continuing to bring that steady, unmistakable force to Valerie's world. It is a privilege to have you. Now, let's check in with Valerie herself for another prescient edition of Always Valerie Cherish. People wanted to hear from Valerie Cherish, and so we had her pick up the call. In fact, we have her here right now on a Zoom to answer all of your questions. So still no camera, but
Should I hop off and then try to log back in, or?
I think we're a little pressed for time, so we're just gonna power through.
It's a pity I did my hair and makeup.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
From Ellen S. on Instagram.
Oh.
What is your next career goal?
I think it would be real fun to live in London and to do a play. You know, not a musical or anything, okay? Learn my lesson. No one needs to see that. You know, just a nice play, like if they did My Dinner with Andre. you know, just a couple gals having dinner. I think that would be so fun. I'd love to do that, right? London, it's so romantic, and then go out to dinner after.
From Cleo R on Threads. I'm a writer.
Oh,
Any words of advice?
you're right now, you want to be a writer? Yeah. Well, you know what? Always, you know, make sure you can feed yourself and have a roof over your head, but keep writing, you know, journal. Everything is writing, right? Didn't Nora Ephron say that? Everything is writing.
From Ruby on TikTok. What's your fitness routine?
Well, Ruby, I live in a high rise, so I like to sometimes do the stairs. Well, to be honest, it's pretty high up, so sometimes I just, you know, go halfway up and then take the elevator. Or sometimes I just do like 2 flights, and when I'm sitting on the couch, you know, I just do some leg lifts, because everything's a workout.
Yeah. Thanks, Val. And that wraps up this episode. Huge thank you to Lisa Kudrow, Michael Patrick King, and to our guests today, Laura Silverman and Jimmy Burrows, for such a thoughtful and fun conversation. And of course, thank you, Valerie Cherish. The next episode is called Valerie Faces Reality, and you can watch or listen to us discuss it right after the new episode drops. Stream new episodes of The Comeback on HBO Max and catch The Comeback official podcast on HBO Max, the HBO Max YouTube channel, and wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I'm Evan Ross Katz. Thank you for joining us. This was an OBB sound production for HBO, hosted by me, Evan Ross Katz. Executive producers for OBB are Michael D. Ratner, Scott Ratner, and Toby Lawless. Executive producer for HBO is Allison Cohen-Sirokach. Producers for HBO, Becky Rowe, Kenya Reyes, and Aaron Kelly. Producer for OBB, Toby Lawless. Podcast manager, Tess Bartholomew. Research producer, Jesse Holland. Production manager, Kevin Lynn. Production coordinator, Terry Kraft. Studio coordinator, Elijah Matias. Editor, Jesse Holland. Post-production supervisor, Mariana Chrysostoma. Assistant editor, Mark Alcacid. Production accountants, Bobby Hanna and Zachary Steinberg. Director of photography, Heath Gresham. First assistant camera and camera operator, Chris Piper. Key grip, Sam Satoski. Grip, Michael Oparachuk. Production designer, Michelle Hall. Lead man, Leo Rodriguez. Swing game, Amanda Hart, Miguel Gregory, Cielo Yanez, Ian Alloway, and Christopher Mason. Sound mixer and editor, Josh Falcon. On-set mixer, Darren Bolin. Key makeup artist, Elaine Offers. Key hairstylist, Megan Heaney. Hair and makeup artist, Kendall Shannon. Production assistant, Max Jordan. Associate director of social for OBB, Lenore Castro. Senior coordinator of social for OBB, Sharif Bakari. Special thanks to HBO Max, Concept and Design Studio, Matthew Truex, and Nicholas Vega of WB Archives. And Tim Meehan and Samantha Coatsworth.